This is one of Franklin's inventions, his library chair. He wasn't a lazy guy, but he was efficient. And so while he sat in his library chair, he just tapped his foot and a fan waved over his head. And these became popular in Franklin's day. Now, Franklin never patented anything. Although there are hundreds of inventions that we could credit to Benjamin Franklin, he felt that when he came up with an innovation, it's something that would benefit the world. And that's what this first section is about. In this earliest known image of Benjamin Franklin, he says that he believes, looking back on his life, that he had a worthwhile life, and he's happy that he could have contributed these innovations and not gained from them. These are some of books from his library. This is the first book that Franklin ever typeset from beginning to end. He was only 19 years old. He went from Philadelphia to England. This was his first trip to England. The governor of Pennsylvania had asked him to buy a printing press and to set up a print shop so he could do government printing. Well, the governor forgot to send the letters of credit. Franklin found himself stranded in England. He had to get a job just to survive, and of course he knew printing, so they put him to work typesetting this book on the nature of religion. Well, as he typeset it, he read it, and he said, well, this is drivel. I could write a better book than this, and so he did. We're seeing a print shop here, those hand printing presses, one sheet at a time. Each sheet has to be dried on a clothesline. You see the printer's balls, those rolling devices with ink on it, so you ink each of the letter types. And here's the composing stick that Franklin himself used. He held that in his hand. There's so much we could talk about with his printing, but he did get government contracts, and among them was for paper money. This is paper money from Pennsylvania. I know it's hard to see in this light, but to prevent that money from being counterfeited, he came up with the idea of using leaves on his printing press. The leaf of a tree with its intricate vein structure made an impression on the paper money that couldn't be counterfeited. It was so intricate, so complex, that no human being could recreate it. Do you hear this music coming from the corner here? It's kind of ethereal, isn't it? That's the glass harmonica, the sound of the glass harmonica. You've probably been to parties when someone wets their finger and runs it around the rim of a wine glass, and it makes some pretty music. Well, Franklin had heard this at a party and said, I can do better than that. So he took 37 bowls of glass, each of them with a different pitch. He put them on an iron spindle, connected it to a treadle, like a treadle sewing machine, with a trough of water, and you could play those glass dishes just the way you could an individual glass. And Mozart and others started composing music for the glass harmonica. This is one of those wagons that Franklin commissioned for Braddock's expedition in 1755. And you'll see some of the gunpowder and muskets and ammunition and supplies that were needed to capture Fort Duquesne here at the forks of the Ohio. And here's all that's left of them right here. These are excavated artifacts that were burned and destroyed in 1755 when Braddock's army was defeated on the banks of the Monongahela. A lot of people don't know that Benjamin Franklin's nephew, Josiah Davenport, was the post trader at Fort Pitt. This is Josiah Davenport's pewter desk and inkstand. That's in the History Center's collection. But that's just yet another Franklin connection to Western Pennsylvania. As we continue into this section, you'll see many of the innovations that Franklin is responsible for, from the first insurance company in America to one of the first fire companies the first fire company in Philadelphia. If you wonder, why is this rattle here? Why do you think that there's this wooden rattle? What's that for? The alarm. It's an alarm rattle. You spin that around. It's like a child's toy, but this is what was used to alert people, volunteer firemen especially, to a fire. This is the suggestion box for the library company. If you've got an idea for a book, just put it in there. And if you're questioning Franklin's views towards slavery, remember, as the U.S. Constitution was being developed, this was a very contentious issue. Franklin himself, when he was a young man in the 1750s, owned slaves and provided for their manumission, their freedom, when he died. Later, he changed his ideas and said, this is an abominable institution. It needs to be abolished. And he becomes the president of the Abolition Society in Pennsylvania. These are Leyden jars, and you can touch these things, and let's see, will this, ouch, that hurt. These things will attract and make bells ring, or you can, does that work? I'm going to get shocked along the way. Kids love tormenting their peers with this whole apparatus here. So grown-ups should use discretion. Kids, they can take it. That's Franklin's lap desk that he used in England. That's his wallet that he carried around in his pocket. It had receipts for tea and other things in it from 1770. You'll also see in this little case his calling card with his address on it. And in those days, you would handwrite your calling card, of course. When he was in France, his sword given to him by the King of France, the Nini medallion, it's on loan from the Franklin Institute. Some of these things, you'll see cannons and flintlock pistols and receipts for loans. These represent Franklin's work in France during the American Revolution. He's the guy who supplies the American Revolution. When did Franklin become a rebel? You know, he was a loyal British citizen. He was proud of being a Briton. He was proud when he received medals for his work on electricity and other innovations when the Royal Society recognized him. But in 1774, he leaked some letters that, well, they were inflammatory. They were written by Americans, and they were not flattering to the crown. And so Franklin was taken to task. He was called by the Privy Council in London to get together to take his medicine. And a Lord Wedderburn, a Scotsman with a sharp tongue, he was an attorney, grilled Franklin and humiliated him before the peers of the Privy Council. Franklin stood there stoically and took this verbal abuse, but never again was he a loyal Briton. That may be the day that he became the first rebel, the first American. Well, you can stand right next to Franklin. You see he stands 5'9", 5'10". This is an exact replica of the only full set of clothes we have for Franklin. So you're seeing, as close as is humanly possible, a recreation of Benjamin Franklin. Thank you all for your kind attention.